Okay, remember that they are changing my voice. I'd like to remind you again that I feel righteous indignation and moral outrage, and what is perhaps best described as a moral hatred. Because even the phrase moral outrage and the phrase righteous indignation can be very vague. The word hate is vague. So, I hate the devil. And the more any group of people, all the inhabitants of the earth, as the Bible would say, but according to their deeds, some groups are more guilty than others. The groups with money and power, the groups that make the policy, the groups that play stupid and control the media, and so on and so forth. Okay? The more they become like the devil every moment of every day, the more how I feel about them becomes like a hatred for them. And after my flesh dies, it will complete to a moral hatred that is exactly precise as it is the whole time, really, but it's not so intense that I would describe it as. So the wordplay here is very interesting because the word hate is not correctly defined. It's not. In fact, I'm going to stop this video for a second here. I'm going to look it up, and I'm going to put the definition of it on the screen, and I'm going to finish the video. Okay, so when I looked it up, I looked up the word hate, and the definition sucks. I looked up the word hatred, got several definitions that all suck. I looked up the phrase righteous indignation, and lo and behold, like I've been saying for years, they're blurring the line. They're trying to blur the line between hatred and righteous indignation. In Merriam-Webster, it says that hatred is, extreme disgust, aversion, a certain sense of resentment, right? Extreme hatred, extreme passionate dislike, and that it's often derived from a sense of injury. In a sense, it like always is, right? A sense of having been done wrong. And so, with the righteous indignation, it says that you have anger, right? Derived from a sense of injury. And this is very key here because they've injured me, and they injure me all the time. With technology, they've caused my neck to protrude in a funny angle. They've caused me aches and pains, cognitive damage, messed up my vision, caused me various injuries that make it so that it's hard for me to lift my legs anymore to do a strike in martial arts. Okay. They've caused me various forms of injury, and they've also gone through the motions of trying to attack God through me, which is how I would describe what they're trying to do. They use technology and loud noises, which is, which many people have witnessed, not just in my case, but in the cases of other people who are targeted by the United States government and abroad. And they create that kind of need to resent them. Anger is a positive emotion when somebody has a healthy brain and healthy mind and lives the truth. There's a need for it. And it helps you deal with certain situations. It helps you set things straight. It has a lot of helpful and useful qualities. Someone who is incapable of being angry is at a great disadvantage. And we see that with a lot of religions. I hate to bring up these religions, but it's the truth and needs to be said. The reason why Buddhist monks and Hindus and all these people who focus more on passive lifestyles, when you look at them, you study them carefully, look at them and their spectrum, they can't beat me at sparring because that component that's a natural and needed and sacred component of human nature is missing from their day-to-day lifestyles as they've chosen to kind of withdraw instead of face adversity. Though Hindus are different from Buddhists, okay, but that's still the case. If you look at Americans very carefully, okay, what type of person really told the truth about everything and what type of person didn't, right? Well, Malcolm X, who believed in God, he told a lot of truth, a lot more truth than most people, right? I don't agree with him about everything, but a lot more truth than most people. Martin Luther King. You see these monotheistic people, they go beyond everyone else. Now, it's not just, these kind of Eastern people. It's also mental health people, hippies. They don't tell as much of the truth, right? It's also communists. Huey Newton told some truth, but he was limited by his racial supremacy, which showed a lack of understanding of God and he was limited by his communist-derived imperfect hatred. We have to make the distinction between those things and righteous indignation. So with righteous indignation, you have a sense of anger or shock that's driven by a sense of injustice or wrong. So they make it seem like it's subjective. Why they're wrong is right there in the word righteous. Righteous in a narrow sense. This is part of why I despise cultures that are dishonest on this issue. I'm a moral supremacist. So if you fail to define morality correctly, if you fail to define virtue correctly, ethics, scruples, righteousness, if you fail to define the word righteous correctly, then I'm going to be mad at you in your culture. If in your culture you call good evil and evil good, like it says in the Bible, I'm going to be mad at you. And if I see whole groups taking on that culture, okay, I'm going to be mad at that group. So when we look at Nazi Germany, right, there was many Jews there who hated all Germans, even the ones who were helpful as a result, right? And there was many Jews who, as the story goes, and people testify to these things, what have you, there was many Jews who hated all Nazis, okay? Now, Nazis are also a group of people. They have been historically, Nazis, neo-Nazis, whatever, okay, in this case, Nazis. They were led by Adolf Hitler and Goebbels and Himmler and Schindler and on and on and on and on, right? Rome's brigade and so on and so forth. They broke into factions, right? Some were in the Luftwaffe and the SS and the SA, okay, and the stormtroopers, Gestapo and whatever else. Some were in the science departments, mental health, what have you. Some were doctors, right? Nazi doctors, nurses. And if somebody said that they hated Nazis, after Nazi Germany, in most Allied places, few people would blame them, right? Now, what they would have felt is a sense of injury relative to what that group of people did to them or people like them, which is a form of selfishness, strange enough. They're right to be angry at them, absolutely. But it's not the same as righteous indignation. So even if you used it that way, you'd still be wrong. Because you have to be in the right and in the spirit of righteousness to feel righteous indignation. And we see in propaganda, they abuse this idea all the time. They like to make it seem like whatever country they're trying to promote is in the spirit of, doing the right thing. It's going to save their women from being raped, or they're going to prevent some injustice from occurring, or they're going to save or liberate some people. It never fails. They always pretend they're in the spirit of righteousness. They never are. And in one nation in the last 2,000 years, okay, that you can say with certainty was in the right, to the point where you would say they were righteous. Now, when we look at these modern movements, right? Look at these modern movements. They argue that they are in the right magically, and that people who feel hatred need to be stopped. They talk about hate speech. Now, to some degree, they let my videos get posted to some degree because nobody's watching my videos. If lots of people were watching my videos, they would, use every excuse in the book to suppress them. It's disgraceful as hell. And that inspires hatred. They fail to house the homeless. It inspires hatred. And it inspires a righteous hatred. It inspires a lukewarm hatred. It inspires an evil hatred. All forms of hatred. We look at the word in the Bible. I look at the faithless with loathing, right? The righteous detest the wicked in Proverbs, Psalms. The people in the church don't scramble to say, hey, that shouldn't be said, whether they're liberals or conservatives or Democrats, Republicans, libertarians. They don't scramble to correct that. You see, they fail to make the distinction between righteous indignation and someone who pretends to be righteous who feels angry. And we see it all over YouTube. All these people who are parts of Masonic groups, corporate groups, political groups, marketing groups, all kinds of groups. cults, sex cults, social clubs, secret societies. Ooh, right? On some weirdo stuff. And they act like they're mad for a good reason at one party or one group or another. Some are much closer to right than others, mind you. And I take note of that, right? However, they don't have righteous indignation. I do. If you were to judge videos on what is good for society and what isn't, every video would be banned, basically, in terms of every video where people weigh in on their opinion or people speak on the Bible, whatever, but my videos. Only my videos would be allowed because they're righteous. The effect of every other type of person, every other video, every other commentator, every other person making a video where they speak their mind is horrible because their spirit is not righteous. And they're leading people to not be righteous by example. Therefore, their acts, which contribute one way or another to the violence in the world, are contributing to it for a reason that's not righteous. Therefore, they are a negative influence on society that is part and parcel with the sins in the world and the evils that happen in the world. So when we're talking about definitions, and you all see how they make it so it's hard for me to articulate, and we look at the definitions. They blurred the line between true righteous indignation and mere hatred, and they made it harder for me to talk at the same fucking time. Which does what? Inspires righteous indignation. So what kind of feeble worm on the left, for example, would argue that I'm not allowed to express anger? And what kind of piece of fucking oppressor shit on the right would collaborate with various factions of the government to silence me, to try to make white people seem to be in the right? What is more detestable than the main oppressor groups pretending to be in the right at the expense of the most righteous person that ever fucking lived while they act bad or something? I warned you about, no, I warned you, motherfucker. And I'm Jesus. Who the fuck do you think you are? I've proven who I am, so who the fuck are you?